Welcome to Boots in Baltimore. I'm LeeAnn Blanchard, and I'm sitting here with Charlotte of Charlotte, Elliott, and the Bookstore Next Door on the Avenue. So, as I mentioned, you are Charlotte,
Yes.
but Elliott is not your last name.
No. Elliott is my younger brother. He's my younger natural brother. There are several other brothers that my parents have added into the family over the years. But no, Charlotte and Elliott are the two natural born children of the family.
And what does Charlotte Elliott, what is it? What do you stock?
We are an antique shop. We've been here for about 20 years, so there is a lot of stuff here.
So much stuff, and it's all amazing.
Our initial business plan, what would we sell? We would sell things we like. We like these things that appeal to us will appeal to other people.
Mm-hmm. So it's an absolute treasure trove. Can you give us some categories or some? Your dad said it was a department store. So what are your departments?
Departments. So we have country home goods, glassware, furniture. I'm sort of casting my eye around going, what do we call this?
So much stuff.
I have a whole collection of vintage clothes in the section behind me. Vintage clothes is really my focus. I like clothing from the 30s and the 40s and the 50s. I have a hard time calling stuff from the 80s vintage, but it has become vintage. I look for iconic things that call to you that period of time.
There's a whole rack of little black dresses.
Little black dresses is a must. Everybody must have one in their wardrobe, and it's the thing that you pull on because, your beau has asked you off suddenly for dinner, and you don't
and
know,
dancing,
and you don't know where you're going. But I also like gowns, and I like fancy robes to wear around the house, and footwear, scarves,
handbags, shoes, gloves,
a lot of gloves, handkerchiefs. I have this thing about people say, oh, handkerchiefs, aren't they so gross? But think about the number of tissues that you use and how environmentally unsound that could be. Whereas a handkerchief in your pocket, it's just yours. And you're not supposed to honk your whole nose into it. You're supposed to just wipe. You're supposed to dab delicately.
And the tissues end up in your pocket anyway.
And they did, but the handkerchief gets washed in the wash, and you put it back in your pocket. And I feel like that and cloth napkins wind up being far more environmentally sound.
And luxurious.
This is all environmentally sound. This is recycling. It's upcycling. It's reusing. It's all the things that we say we want to do in society these days. It's not just fancy trinkets and bric-a-brac to put around your house. Good dishes. Wash the dishes, reuse the dishes. Better than paper plates. And pretty. It's all about pretty for me. I like the idea that when I go home and I fix dinner, I'm putting the food on a pretty plate that the food is worthy of.
Right. It's the whole experience
of sitting down at the dining room table and eating dinner with the family. Even if I'm just serving out macaroni and cheese, I still want to put it on a good piece of china.
That's amazing. So what would you say is your most popular category or type of item?
Oh, it depends on the day. Recently, we opened the antique shop about 20 years ago. I was having my first child, and I had before this been working in the theater. And when you're working in the theater, your job is finding your next job because the job you have is only good for
temporary,
only good for the run. And I needed something more stable, and we decided to open up the shop. And we initially just opened up the antique shop side. And then we expanded into the bookstore about 10 years ago. And the bookstore has been really popular. Vintage clothing has its days, especially around festival season when everyone wants to get pretty and dressed up, and when there are
Mm-hmm.
theme parties and events around,
Yep.
people are looking for that thing to wear to the party. Uh, Antiques roll here and there. It really depends. Mostly around Christmas, everybody wants a pretty thing to give to a friend. But the bookstore is pretty popular consistently, uh, with uh, the fiction section, the science fiction section, the first edition section. Um, the philosophy section has boomed lately.
Hmm.
For a long time, cookbooks were the big thing. But the philosophy section has boomed lately. I'm curious as to what has transpired uh, in our public consumption and our thinking, that we want to go back and reread the old thinkers. But it's all, it all has its day. It all has its time. Especially when people move into a first house, they're moving into their new home. They've put out their old stuff and they go blech, and they want something pretty and fancy to be worthy of this new space. And so this is what we're here for. I absolutely adore it when somebody comes in, they bought their new place, and they want to do their first Thanksgiving. But they
Ooh.
realize that they don't have
Don't have anything. No, nothing to put the
they don't
food
have the
on. No.
platters, they don't have the serving pieces, and we try to accommodate them as best we can for those special occasions.
Awesome. It's beautiful. We have so many pictures of all these wonderful, wonderful things.
It's been an adventure, and the stuff changes constantly. It really depends on what we find when we go to the sales
Mm-hmm.
to buy things. We don't do consignment.
Okay.
Uh, just on a funny little side note with our family, we there is a consignment shop up around the corner that's
Mm.
lovely, the turnover shop, and I recommend them highly. Uh, but they have such a good grasp of the paperwork to
Mm.
keep track of everybody's things.
Right.
We don't.
That's a whole other layer of complexity.
We don't. We don't have that sort of complexity here. We buy what we like. We put it out.
Mhm.
We hope we display it in a way that you see it in its best light. Um, and we uh, and we want to sell it. So we go to estate sales and auctions,
Mhm.
and sometimes we don't like going to people's houses,
Mm.
but we like going to sales of their things elsewhere. It's a separation
Mhm.
of things, and we enjoy it. We go. We like the search. We go off to antique sales and shows, and uh, we really do enjoy we've been doing this for 20 years. I mean, this is a family business.
Mhm.
My mom is here. My dad is here. My brothers work here periodically. My son works here. There's a lot of family involvement, and if you understand what I mean, where sometimes we get a little tired of each other. So after 20 years, we still all like each other. So it's a good solid business plan that we have here, that we're all working together so concisely and happily, and it carries on. And I hope we carry this on for much longer.
So, marvelous things here. Highly recommend everybody comes and looks in person because it changes all the time.
All the time.
But can people shop online?
We do have a website. We're not terribly good at it. Um, because things change so often,
Mhm.
and because things are never in the same place for very long. We rearrange, we redecorate. It's hard to keep track of things that we've put online. Frequently, we've had things that we just sold it in the store, and suddenly
Oh.
somebody orders it online, and we go, "What do we do?" I personally am very old school. I prefer to shop in person. I prefer that people come to me and I can show them options.
Mhm.
They get to see it and touch it and feel it in person.
Mhm.
Uh, Online sales, they happen, but I really don't know how to sell half of this stuff online. I have an Instagram. I will post pretty pictures of things that I just got in or that I just found that I'm very excited about. And that often leads people to come in and go, hey, do you have more of that? And I have, of course, we have the Facebook page, and we do have this website that has been a difficult thing. I haven't been able to get anybody to. The trouble is that the personality of the store doesn't represent itself very well on a
Yeah.
face on
You
a
kind of have to
website.
be here
If I
and get the
was
vibe.
if I was selling 12 of a thing, I could put it on a website and say, "Here, I have 12 of these. Buy them."
Right.
I have tried selling on Etsy and I've tried selling on eBay, but me and computers and me and my dad and computers and my mom and computers. My mother just recently figured out how to send an attachment through a text. So we're all kind of like that. We like antique things.
Got
So
it.
newfangled stuff
Got it.
is not our best.
So if people are coming to the store, which they should do, when are you open?
We are open every day, 7 days a week. We are open noon. We open at noon. We close around 5 on most days. On Fridays and Saturdays, we stay open till 6. Uh, Sometimes we'll stay open a little later because, we're having a good time.
Or somebody comes in.
Or somebody comes in. But most of the time, we try to close things down around 5 because we've got to go home and make dinner.
Right. That makes sense. So what's your favorite thing right now?
I have a fabulous black velvet vintage hat with egret feathers from the 1940s. It's one of those fabulous shallow crown, large saucer rim, asymmetrical, just gorgeous thing. That's upstairs. One of my favorite things. I don't know, everything. I love it. We just got in this beautiful set of a pair of Chinese bronze. They were candle holders, and they've been translated into electric lamps. And they are old. They're antique Chinese bronze, and they're beautiful. Little cherry blossoms all through them. And goodness me.
Well, I've only been here a very short time. My favorite were the Nancy Drew books.
Yeah.
That made me super happy. There's a trunk over here that reminds me of Joe versus the Volcano.
Joe versus the Volcano.
A steamer trunk like you wouldn't believe.
The sort of thing that you would have traveled with had you been traveling on, say, the Titanic or the Britannia.
It's so cool.
It opens up into a full dresser.
Yes, there were purses. The little black dresses were amazing. I mean, come here, expect to spend an hour. Just do.
And we are happy to talk to people, and I'm very pleased if somebody comes in and needs help trying to find a dress to put on. I mean, obviously that's my focus, is the clothing. I really think people need to dress magnificently. And if that is an 80s members only jacket and a pair of trousers from the 40s, that's fine.
Whatever the occasion,
whatever,
right?
However it works, you got to find your style. And I do enjoy that very much.
Well, thank you. This has been amazing. I really, really appreciate it. Mm-hmm. This is Boots in Baltimore. Come to Charlotte Elliott in person with all your friends. It's going to be, your mind is going to be blown, basically.
And Charlotte Elliott and the Bookstore Next Door.
And the Bookstore Next Door.